try that again, start over. Good evening and welcome to the Easton School Committee meeting of Thursday, October 24th, 2024. This meeting is open to the public and is being conducted in a hybrid format where attendance by committee members may be remote and remote attendance will count towards quorum. So this evening, attending remotely, we have Jackie Wiseman. Jackie, can you confirm that you can hear us and that we can hear you?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. And then in the Simmons Lecture Hall for voting members, we have Kelly Curcio, Nancy DeLuca, Lauren Loomis, and I am Jen Starr. This meeting is open to the public. Members of the public who are attending in person may provide comments during our public comment period. Folks who do provide public comment will be required to provide their name and address before beginning their comments. So with that, the meeting has been called to order, and we can move to the first item on the agenda, which is a vote to approve an overnight trip. Dr. Cabral?
Thank you. Kyle Souza, the coach of the boys and girls cross-country team, has a request for an overnight. I don't think he's able to join us tonight, but an overnight trip for the cross-country team to go to Northfield Mountain Recreation Center in Northfield, Mass. And he's here, so I'll let him give you all the important details and answer any questions you might have. This is in November, and you are familiar with their typical requests in terms of going the day before to learn the route and so forth. But I will let Coach Souza tell you the details. Go right ahead, Coach.
Thank you very much. And Dr. Cabral kind of captured the gist of it right there. We, in our sport, we have to know the route that we're running prior to race day. And normally we go see courses a day or two in advance, but normally those courses are in places like Sharon and Canton. And this one is in Northfield, Massachusetts. It's just very difficult logistically to bring the kids all the way to Northfield a few days before and then bring them back again on Saturday morning. So our request will look similar to previous years for many of you who've seen it before, but our request is essentially to take the team out to the Northfield course on Friday afternoon, give them an opportunity to run on the course and to learn all of the ins and outs, and then we would stay in a hotel in the Northfield area that night, and then on Saturday head over to the course and compete in our state championship.
Okay. And unless the details have changed, it will be 10 males, 10 females, along with 3 coaches and 1 to 2 parent chaperones.
That's exactly right.
Okay, great. Any, I know this is a routine request, so any questions from the committee member on the request? And any?
So just for clarification, so Northfield is a good couple hours away, right? In terms of the distance, which is the need for the stay.
Yeah, it's just over 2 hours by bus, we estimate.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So, Coach, can I ask you to share with our very wide audience of supporters how your teams did this season? Because I know it was another phenomenal season, so I'd love for the committee to hear directly from you.
I would love to. I'll glow about it. We have a tremendous team this year. It's a great group of kids. They worked very hard in the preseason. Both teams were undefeated this year, won their Davenport Division championships in the regular season. We have our Hockomock League championships this weekend in Rentham, so we're very excited, but we're having a great year.
Awesome. Great. Well, congratulations to the team on their success so far, and to you and the rest of the coaching staff for all that you do.
Thank you for all your support. We appreciate it.
Absolute powerhouse year after year, so it's fun group to watch. So, okay. So if there are any other questions or comments? No? All right. Would somebody like to make a motion then to approve the overnight trip for the OA cross-country team on November 8th, 2024?
So moved, Loomis.
Okay.
Second, DeLuca.
And roll call vote?
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes?
Loomis, yes.
Percio, yes.
All right. Great. Thank you. Good luck to everybody, and thanks for joining us.
Good luck and
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Okay. Next up is a vote to accept a grant for the Iron Tigers robotics team. Dr. Cabral?
Thank you. This request is from Helder Lobo, teacher at Oliver Ames. In his place is Principal Kelly Kavanaugh, who can explain this STEM grant from Burns and McDonnell and answer any questions you may have.
Okay, So Burns and McDonald is an engineering, architecture, construction, and environmental consulting company in Massachusetts. And they have provided a grant for our robotics team that was just recently awarded a few weeks ago. We're very, very thankful for the generous offer. As you know, robotics is an incredibly expensive team to run, upwards of over $30,000 in order to participate in the competitions and build a robot. So this is going to be a huge help to our program.
What is the amount of the grant?
$5,000.
Awesome.
Wow,
Very generous.
that's fantastic. Okay, any questions, comments?
The club plans to use it for Lego STEM and robotics related supplies for the team.
And I was at the fundraiser on Sunday, so the fabulous Steve Marsh, right?
Well, he's one of the mentors, coaches on the robotics, so he was very pleased, and they were very pleased.
Yes.
They have some go-getter parents on that crew, I'll tell you.
They really
They're
do.
amazing.
Yeah.
But it was a beautiful day.
It was a beautiful day. The food was great. It was a good crowd there, so it looked like it was a successful.
They did very well.
Successful
Yeah.
fundraiser, which is great. And again, as you mentioned, it is very expensive, and,
Yeah.
the team has to raise a ton of money. So I'm happy to support and promote those initiatives. And they have, I heard, 45 kids.
So I don't know the exact
This
number.
year?
Yeah, signed
Yeah.
up. They're just getting started now because their season's similar to sports. They can't start building their robot to a certain date. So right now they're doing the prep work and the planning and helping everybody make sure that they understand or are learning the skills and concepts they need in order to jump in and build that robot when the break comes around.
Yeah, so one of the mentors was talking about the growth of the program and how many new students they have and how excited they are.
We made it to the States for the first time last year, which was excellent.
So great. Great, okay, all right. Would somebody like to make a motion to accept the $5,000 grant for the Iron Tigers robotics team from Burns and McDonald?
So moved, Marcio?
Can I get a second?
DeLuca, second.
Okay, and roll call vote.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
Loomis, yes.
Percio, yes.
All right,
I
great.
just want to make sure we recognize Mr. Lobo also for applying for the grant that was awarded to them. That obviously goes above and beyond, and it's very much appreciated.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right. Okay, next up is a vote to approve a new sponsor to the banner sponsor list. Dr. Cabral?
So Foreign Language Department Chair Maria Palma is requesting that Kelly Marie's Essentials be added to the banner list. They'd like to place a logo of their business on the class of 2025 signage. The company has donated $100 toward that sponsorship. And Ms. Palma is here and can add any other details if there are any and answer your questions. Ms. Palma?
Hi, thank you for having me. So as you heard, I'm one of the class advisors for 2025, and we have a really busy and fun year planned for the kids, lots of events. We also have the biggest class at OA right now, 290 students. And so Ms. Shea, my fabulous co-advisor, and I have been really trying to brainstorm ways to help make all of these events accessible for all of the students and work on a lot of fundraising. So the appeal to local businesses has been very successful. A lot of the parents who have businesses have been very generous and have reached out to us with donations. So the amounts have been in $100, and we actually have 3 that have come in recently that are I'm requesting approval for to put their logo on our banner. They would be Kelly's Essentials of Easton, Mass, essential oils and homemade soaps. Easton Cutting and Drilling, so a construction type company. And those are both parents' businesses, their personal businesses. And then the other organization is Easton Women of Today, who does a lot in the community. And one of the moms is part of that organization. So each of them has offered $100.
Okay. All right, so we'll just need to make sure, so Mrs. Kavanaugh, I think we only had one of them highlighted, so just make sure that they're on the next round of the list. Yeah. Okay, okay, all right. Okay, do any committee members have any questions or comments for Ms. Palma?
I think it's great that you're seeking creative ways to help the class. So, and that
Thank you.
families are being so generous in donating and using that opportunity. It's fantastic. So, very good.
They've been wonderful.
That's awesome. Thank you for spending your time doing that for the kids.
Oh, you're welcome.
And being class advisor, which is a
Again.
lot of work.
A lot of fun
Advisor,
too.
Plus fundraiser, plus all of the things.
Okay, all right. So if there's nothing else, then I will take a motion. If somebody would like to make one to approve the Easton Cutting and Drilling, Easton Women of Today, and Kelly Marie's Essentials to be added to the banner sponsor list.
So moved, Loomis.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Curcio, second.
Roll call vote.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes?
Loomis, yes.
Curcio, yes.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up is a discussion and possible vote to allow a music video to be filmed at Oliver Ames High School. So I'll give a quick background before handing off to Dr. Cabral to give a little bit more background on the opportunity itself. But it was something that came to me as the chair, and I just felt like where it's very new, I don't think we've had a history of a request like this. And where there wasn't anything clearly in our policy that seemed to address this request. There are some things that are sort of tangential about, advertising, et cetera, but it didn't really seem to fit into those buckets. So I just wanted the committee to have an opportunity to just discuss and weigh in and see if you had any concerns before we give the applicant feedback on their request.
Okay, so an OA alum from 2020, Asher Thomas, manages a roster of alternative rock bands. And one of those bands that he represents, named Ring Pop, he would like to film their music video for their release Good Team in the OA gymnasium. He wants to work with them in the gym during non-school hours, after school and on weekends. We did ask them to provide a copy of the lyrics to the song, and it's in your packets for your review.
I think one of the considerations that came up was that the gym itself has a lot of logos on the wall due to banners for sports. There's the logo. There's stuff painted on the wall. So there's a lot that identifies the gym as being part of Oliver Ames, which we imagine is part of the point of the request, or could be a desired part of the request. So we just wanted to see if committee members thought that we should have any reservations or concerns about our signage being perhaps in the background of a video. So I personally don't, but I just didn't feel like that was my decision to make.
And there's no plan to cover it up, is there?
We don't have an option to cover them or remove them. It would be a tremendous amount of work that wouldn't be reasonable for us to be able to do. So I haven't been able to confirm if Asher's looking for the banners to be in it or is somehow able to avoid them. I don't know if that's a part of what he's looking for. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Thank you, Principal Kavanaugh.
When I spoke to Asher on the phone, I think, to be honest with you, and one of the things he says in his email is he loved his time at OA, and to bring it back full circle and actually have it in the Nixon gym was part of for his own personal and professional hopes would be important to him. That would make it really like a full circle, like a full circle of memories for him. I honestly can't imagine being able to avoid the OA logo. It's painted on the walls, it's on the floor, it's everywhere, I did listen to the song. He gave me a copy. It's very good. I will say that. Pop, I love your song. because I was worried about lyrics too, and I did listen to the full song to make sure that it was something that we felt like was appropriate.
Do we know anything about the intent of how it's being filmed in terms of visual effects, costuming? Like,
Yeah.
I just don't, I want to make sure that there's a clean nature to something that
Yeah.
is being filmed in an OA gym with our logo on it.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable, yeah, you wouldn't want something that's super offensive with,
Yep,
yeah,
or
our
has some
logo in it.
level of something that would make us uncomfortable, whether it be violence or alcohol or other things. Like, I just wouldn't
Yeah.
want it to be.
A tacit
I know Asher
endorsement
from
of-
years ago when he was a student here. He's an amazing human being. I would be shocked, but I do think because this sets a precedent for how we think about these things in the future, the lyrics plus the expectation of what's being filmed and what they agreed to have in terms of the appropriateness, it needs to represent a high school, not behavior that shouldn't happen in high school.
Yeah.
I don't have any specifics on what they'll be doing in the film, except that it's very small, so it's just the band members playing and a small crew videotaping them. Like, there's no extras, it's very small. But I could either find out for you, or I could give very specific guidelines and make sure that a member of our school is present while it's being filmed to ensure that we do put in, just monitor, like you said, the appropriateness of what they're filming.
I personally would advocate in the direction of guidelines and supervision under the expectation that we could theoretically get asked this again, right? And so under that premise, like setting the tone for it, I'm sure he could give a description, it'd be clear, but under the circumstance that someone gave a description and didn't honor it in the future, that could be a challenge. So not an expectation I expect of our former students, but worth setting a proper tone, I think.
So,
Is there a contract that he will be signing
The facilities.
beyond that?
there isn't, but what I think I'm hearing is maybe a short narrative of the intention. Is this a performance?
Yep.
Are they gonna have any logos or any kind of words on their clothing, things of that nature? I think that is a short, reasonable narrative to request, in addition to the facilities request form.
Yeah.
If that works.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think just setting an expectation that it is behavior appropriate for a high
It
school.
meets our handbook needs.
Yes,
right?
yes,
What
I-
expects
literally,
of
yes,
students'
yes.
behavior,
Yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think that's exactly the right frame.
Yeah.
If it is within, here's a copy of our handbook, if you can agree that it's going to fit within the expectations of students.
Yeah.
And can provide a short narrative and note any props that are used, like, just so we have an understanding of what's happening.
Yeah. So when I was in college, the dean of my school, which was the BU College of Communication, was the head of PR for the Navy. When Cher filmed her If I Could Turn Back Time video on an aircraft carrier, and her costume change was a big surprise
Remember
to the
well.
filming.
those
Remember that
in relationship.
controversy? Yeah, yeah. So it definitely raises points where these things happen, right? Where
There was actually a music video filmed in my high school that had questionable nature to it, which is why I know to ask now. And
It does say here that the whole music video displays the band's lead singer playing various team sports while the full band performs the song in the gymnasium.
that would make sense as to the
Adorable.
need for the gymnasium. And
yeah.
I think it would be a good idea to have a very informal contract be drafted that that mentions align with the student handbook. So as the student handbook changes, the contract will pivot along with it.
Can we do that? Can we create an addendum to the facilities request for something of this nature that has a permanency to it, meaning filmed or photoed, that would allow us to manage this request if it came in the future?
We can. That would be, legal will have to draft that. If it's legally binding, legal has to draft that.
Understood. What do others think about that? Is that what your intent was, Lauren, like an addendum to the?
I think for this request, they were looking to film in November, so I don't know if it would
That I can't guarantee.
be something, that would, right, Kelly, that was, they were looking for
Yeah, I'm looking at the email right now.
November, yeah.
And was this a multiple day filming? So is that a multiple day facility rental?
Yes.
It says likely 3 to 4 hours in the gymnasium. They're flexible in early weekends in November.
That's next week.
So would the committee be comfortable with maybe conditionally approving this tonight, because we're not going to meet again until November? Conditionally approving based on Principal Kavanaugh just communicating, the expectations that we have. And then for maybe a longer, and maybe we can even on the facilities, just add a quick blurb that just acknowledges, per conversation or whatever. That's not legally, all that stuff. But then maybe consider for future, for future things, maybe a longer term project could be to get legal to draft a facilities rental addendum that's related to, media use or something. And I'm sure we probably don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are plenty of schools in Massachusetts whose facilities are used for filming, for, movies and all that kind of stuff. So maybe the world will learn that we have beautiful facilities and knocking down our door to rent them.
Well, and we should have a policy drafted on that kind of work as well.
Yeah. So I think, work on policy and then maybe a more formal legal thing. Jackie, what other thoughts do you have on this?
I think it's also crucial that somebody from the school is there for the whole time. So if they see something that seems inappropriate, they can shut it down.
So I guess I would say, Jen, to your comment, I still would like the narrative. And the narrative along with the confirmation of understanding of the handbook. So perhaps, Principal Kavanaugh, if you can respond in an email with that information and requesting it, so we just at least have it documented, what the expectation was. And then to your point, we could do a conditional request that, assuming that all checks out, an agreement. Would that work, Lauren?
Yeah, that's fine. If we are requesting to have someone from the schools be represented there, can we add that into the facility fees? Of whatever it would
the
cost?
compensation for the time?
No?
Well, it
Okay.
depends. I'm thinking you're sending a salaried person.
I
And
was just thinking.
yeah, we don't,
Versus principals were
people
salaried,
like
so you're not
principals
gonna
and
pay us
superintendents
additional.
don't get
But I would say I
salary.
would
get
want a
it, that's
custodian
kind of-
on. I
right.
would want them to pay for a
Oh,
custodian
that's
to be
a good
there too.
Yeah. That's part of the facilities.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you for your willingness to support this.
Yeah, I really enjoyed talking to him.
I think it's exciting.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
It was great. Okay, so can I just, do you mind if I just recap real quick? I'm gonna write a blurb that's gonna be attached to the facilities request that outlines what basically you were saying, Kelly, about the expectations around appropriateness and meeting the requirements in our handbook for student behavior. And that a member of the administration will be present at the,
And a short narrative from them.
Yep. And a short narrative from them about what they're gonna be actually filming.
Right.
It'll be both of those things. okay?
Right, absent the contract, which probably wouldn't be ready in time.
Yeah, okay. Okay, excellent, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank
Um,
you.
If I may for a moment, I feel the need to embarrass poor Asher. When he was in elementary school, he started telling his mother that he couldn't take peanut butter and jelly sandwiches twice a week to school, and she couldn't figure out why. And she finally found out it was because he wanted to sit at the nut-free table with my child and other children who didn't have enough classmates sitting with them. So he stopped taking his favorite sandwich and would make her bring alternative things so that he could go join them.
Oh, cute.
Wow.
So
That's great.
That's adorable.
All right, then, so I will make I'll word the motion. So I'll make a motion to allow the music video as described by Principal Kavanaugh to be filmed at Oliver Ames High School, contingent upon the items discussed here tonight. That stand? Okay. And can, second? Oh, I made the motion, so you're the second. Okay. All right.
Oh,
Yes.
second Loomis.
All right, roll call vote.
Yes.
Watson, yes.
Star, yes.
Loomis, yes.
Percy, yes.
Oh, well-oiled machine.
When
Okay.
it gets a little later, maybe we'll go straight.
Alrighty, so next up we have some policy items that are on the agenda, and I'll just double check with Jackie and Nancy. So we are ready to discuss the Buildings and Grounds Management file second reading, but my understanding is the rest of them we want to table to a future meeting because you are in the process of working through those drafts for our first reading. Is that correct? Okay.
Correct.
All right, so first, I will make a motion to table for a future meeting the following policies that are on tonight's agenda. Non-discrimination file AC, non-discrimination on the basis of sex file ACA, non-discrimination on the basis of handicap file ACE, equal employment opportunity file GBA, equal educational opportunities file JB. Can I get a second
Second, DeLuca.
roll call vote?
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yeah.
Star, yes?
Perseo, yes.
Okay, all righty, thank you. So that leaves us with Buildings and Grounds Management File EC, and this is our second reading. Dr. Cabral?
This is your second reading. This simple request is to change the staff member responsible from the administrative assistant of the superintendent to the director of facilities and operations. And that change has been made. And if you have any further questions about that, otherwise this would be your second reading and you have the opportunity to vote this evening if you wish to.
Okay, any discussion, comments, questions on this one? Seems very straightforward. Okay, all right, would somebody like to make a motion then to approve the updates to the Buildings and Grounds Management File EC policy?
DeLuca, so moved.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Perseo, second.
Roll call vote?
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yeah.
Star, yes?
Loomis, yes.
Perseo, yes.
Great, thank you. All right, so next up, we have our student representative to the school committee update. So, ready to go?
Yeah.
All right.
Hi, my name's Lee Vore. I'm the 10th grade representative for our student advisory committee. Just a few updates from the different schools. Our 11th grade representative is meeting with, I believe, administration from Blanche Ames this upcoming week. And then from Richardson Olmsted, I was able to meet with the Citizens of the Month from September. They were all very excited, liking their new teachers, adjusting very well to school, especially loving their new playground, and enjoying a lot of the specials in recess. Loving their incentive activities, things that they can win so they can act better and just better themselves in ways. A couple of criticisms. I heard a lot about their lunch and cafeteria options, liking more options, healthier breakfast options, vegan, vegetarian things. How to waste less foods in the cafeteria and all of those sides and things that students typically throw away. And then for EMS, Brendan Dolan met with students and administration. One of the big things was criticisms based on the new rule changes, that students feel that they don't have much of a voice in those, and those are rules directly affecting them, but also rules that they don't understand the rationale behind and aren't being effectively communicated to them. So, of course, they don't understand why these rule changes are being made, so they would like them to not be made, especially if they don't really know what's going on. I think our example of that was the time that they have to stay in the cafeteria in the morning being pushed from 7:40 to 7:45, which is a thing of getting crowded in there, a lot of students in there, seating with friends, and such as that, which poses a bit of a difficulty because of the times that buses arrive, which gives students less freedoms on when they can arrive at school, so that they don't end up in that situation, which I think is just one of those rule changes that wasn't effectively communicated to them in a way that they understand why it was made. For OA, the biggest thing was the Beyond the Stereotype presentations led by senior Sonia Warwick and a group of senior girls. This was a pilot presentation regarding stereotypes and misconceptions of various races, ethnicities, and cultures. There were 2 pilot presentations, grades 9 and 12, then grades 10 and 11, just opening their eyes to these sort of baseline, thinking of the word, sorry, topics, so that later in the year, as they continue these Beyond the Stereotype presentations, we delve deeper and make sure our students are aware of the language they use with one another and learning about one another, learning not to judge one another, and just becoming a more community type style. And I think that's about it.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Fantastic job.
Anything, any questions for me? I'm open to anything.
Okay, great. Yeah. Any questions or feedback? And just so the public knows, we meet bi-monthly. Is that, yeah, every other month is bi-monthly, right? Okay. I always have to check that with the Student Advisory Committee. So we had which is a public meeting that public is welcome to attend and listen to. So we had a robust discussion about some of the topics that were brought up prior to this meeting in that workshop. So that's why conversation around some of these topics may be minimal, but please trust that we definitely heard them and had a lot of discussion and feedback and some takeaways because it's really valuable information to be coming our way. So just sharing that. But anything else that's come up?
I appreciate you bringing the voice forward.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah. Great job. Fantastic. Thank you for being here. Okay. All right. Next up is a vote to appoint a delegate for the MASC, Mass Association of School Committees Conference. So this is the MASC, MASS, which is the Mass Association of School Superintendents, joint conference is coming up in November 6th. Yes, November 6th through the 8th. And I believe at this point we have 3 of us who are going. Is that right? So I know I'm going, Nancy and Lauren. Okay, all right. So part of the conference includes the delegate assembly, which this year will be on Friday afternoon. And so this is an opportunity for school committees from around the state to gather. They have 1 delegate for the resolutions or for this part of the meeting. And we get to vote on resolutions that have been put forward. And those resolutions can become guideline recommendations for other school districts to follow, or can inform the legislative advocacy agenda for the upcoming year. So it's an opportunity for us to have our voice heard at the state level about what our priorities are and bring our district priorities to the state level. So we do need to nominate a delegate and an alternate for that part of the conference. So would anybody like to be the delegate?
It's just
Very-
on that,
very
it's on
small
that
though.
Friday thing,
It
right?
is.
Yeah, I'll do
Yes.
it.
Yep, okay, all right.
It wasn't really a nomination, I'll just
Okay, so
sign
you're
up.
willing to?
I'm willing to do it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I nominate Nancy.
Thank you,
Okay.
Kelly.
The delegate.
Okay, all
Thank
right.
you.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
I don't think we voted yet.
Yes,
No, we have
so,
not.
and then,
we
so,
can graduate.
so the alternate, I would be fine being the alternate unless, Lauren, you'd like to.
I nominate Lauren.
Oh!
She's like, no.
Do you decline the nomination, or would you?
I will be I'll be there, so I'll be the
I mean, it's up to you. I was just.
All right.
All right,
All right,
great.
all right, so Nancy will be the, just jot this down, actually.
Jen, you had such a good time last time. I'm
Were you
surprised.
You're still going to be there, right?
Yeah, but you can't, I don't think we can even attend the resolutions clinic
Oh, I thought
unless
you
you're
could.
like the delegate. Or maybe you have a voting thing and there's non-voting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, yes, I was the delegate last year. It's
give everyone a fair chance.
exactly.
It's quite
an
interesting.
experience. It is a very, very,
I did it during COVID.
Oh,
Oh, my God.
it's a very, very interesting experience.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, great. So
In
with,
fairness, I'm not going because I have a trip planned, so
So,
I appreciate you all.
so the next part then is,
do we need to vote?
Yes.
Oh, yes, sorry, yes, okay.
So I make a motion that I am the delegate and Lauren is the alternate delegate
Okay.
to the MASC November.
Wiseman second.
Great.
Thank you, Jackie.
Roll call vote.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes?
Loomis, yes.
Pursue, yes.
Okay, all right, great. So next up then is for an opportunity for us to give feedback to our delegates on the resolutions themselves. So my recollection from last year is that we did not, this wasn't a formal vote where we said, okay, you have to vote this way. It was an opportunity for the delegate to get a sense from the rest of the committee about how we feel. So in practice, there can, and last year were many amendments proposed, so that's why it doesn't make sense to take a binding vote, because what's presented here may not be the actual voting items when you're sitting in the room. So hopefully people have had an opportunity to review these ahead of time. So there were 2 packets that were included. One is from the delegate manual, the report of the resolutions committee, a lot of whereas, therefore it be resolved language. It's quite extensive. The other one is a PowerPoint presentation from a resolutions clinic that was held, and there's a recording of it available online. And this breaks down the resolutions, just each slide with the summary. So we'd like to just maybe go through each of them, and Nancy and Lauren, you can take notes on, kind of, did we have a consensus feelings, strongly either way on any of these items. So the first one is.
Can I just ask a clarifying question for the tired person?
Sure, yes.
They're the same resolutions, right? Just 2 different ways of presenting
Yes.
them? My brain was not confused. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yep,
Thanks. Just confirming.
So the first resolution is a development of an alternative to the high-stakes MCAS test. So there are a lot of whereas clauses here, but we'll focus on the therefore be it resolved parts, which is therefore be it resolved that the MASC urges Massachusetts to develop a wider, more consensus-built strategy for an evaluation system with meaningful input from legitimate stakeholders. That MASC urges the state legislature to launch a comprehensive evaluation to investigate the extent of biases pertaining to MCAS testing and make these results public. That MASC urges Massachusetts to enact a moratorium on MCAS testing effective immediately. And that MASC urges Massachusetts to develop an alternative to the high-stakes MCAS tests. So this is something that there was a similar, there have been similar resolutions in past years. This one was quite contentious and highly debated at last year. I don't even recall if it made it to a vote or if it was just tabled. And so I suspect, and based on, I did attend the, I attended the workshop, and I think there is concern about, there's concern about the fact that there is a ballot question related to this.
I was confused by that, yeah.
That could make some of this. A little too late. Yeah, but although the ballot question is really just about the graduation requirement. So this is more comprehensive. And my recollection is that there were folks who pushed back on the third item, which was enacting a moratorium on MCAS testing effective immediately. And so, again, this isn't just my opinion. I personally think that's.
Can we even do that? Is that even?
I don't think we can. I don't
Even
think
do
so.
what?
Can they resolve to enact a moratorium?
Yeah, you can't put is that even, like,
Well,
could
it's
the
just a
state?
resolution, you're just
Yeah,
making a resolution.
right. But could the legislature, could DESI get this and say, moratorium on MCAS? No, right, because No Child Left Behind, and there's a
You-
need
Well,
for
they don't have to do anything based on
testing
the
and all
resolution.
that.
Right.
Right, of course.
No, but just even if it's like, it's kind of silly to debate a resolution if it's not even possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, it's federal law that you have to have a state test. Every state
Right,
has one.
right,
Yeah,
So I don't think you can just get rid of it.
Right.
yeah.
right.
Yeah, okay. All right, so that was
Without a replacement.
yeah, yeah.
And that's,
So you can't do the
yeah.
moratorium and then wait.
But
for
the last one,
Right,
that's what they
this
want to
calls
do,
for
develop
both
a new
at the
one.
same time, and that's-
Yeah, yep. So I suspect that this will be a very interesting and heated discussion and may not get to resolution at the meeting, or that this may be broken down into into different packages. But I guess, so based on that, so I think we all agree that number 3, again, it's as Jackie said, interesting to choose to put energy towards something that's not possible. Any thoughts on the other 3 pieces of this resolution? I personally don't have issues with the first 2, and then the last one seems very tied to the ballot question, so it's not really something that MASC is going to influence, and they've already made their standpoint very clear on that. But
Yeah, it would be really interesting to hear the discussion of this, to see what other, if people have ideas for other options, or what they were thinking of when they came up with this. I'm not opposed to it either. I'm just curious to hear the discussion.
It'll be interesting because it'll be days after the vote,
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
right? So,
literally.
yeah,
right, it'll all be fresh.
yep. Okay, anything else on this? I know we kind of just want to keep things moving.
I think this is kind of a wait and see one myself, like to see what everybody has to say.
Yeah.
Lauren and I will be right there.
Yeah, I,
We'll sneak you in.
You what?
we could always go back and revote.
Yeah.
I think I will be very curious to hear the discussion on it. The thing that stood out to me on this is that there seems to be some concern of bias that gets created with the way the MCAS is implemented and then it's applied to certain schools. So that part of the discussion is interesting, and I'm always attuned to someone feeling that there is bias, because at times they're trying to express something that they're concerned about. So that would be my ask, is to observe what that concern is as you're listening to the discussion. Someone raised this with some concern of bias that comes.
Yeah, and actually, I've been hearing that from years from teacher friends of mine that work in inner cities, that some of the examples or situations given to children that had no experience with those situations, and how are they supposed to evaluate it in that kind of circumstance. So I've been hearing that for a long time.
The snow day question comes to mind for me.
Yep.
They asked the kids to write, I think it was 4th grade, and they asked them to write a whole thing about what would your favorite thing be to do on a snow day? And the kids are like, what are you talking about? There hadn't been a snow day for 2
What do you
years.
mean? Dr. Cabral doesn't call those. I don't know what that is.
It was way before you, Dr. Cabral, way
Enough
before
before it
you,
started.
way before you.
I remember that.
And we had students from other countries that had never
They had
seen
no
snow
idea
before.
what snow is, right.
Yep.
So
Yep,
it's
that's the
biased
type of
in
thing.
that way,
Right.
yeah.
Well, and from a friend who teaches in an environment like that, like, it's not fun in that situation because they're not getting food that day. They weren't, like, for some students, what's your favorite thing to do on a snow day? Like, I actually don't get the meals that are provided at the school. I'm sitting there with limited care from a neighbor while, like,
Freezing in my
it's
house,
freezing in
yeah.
my house, like,
Perhaps
this is
alone.
not, perhaps
Without-
alone, yeah. So
Without
like,
supervision.
there's a presumption and a question like that. So questions like that, there's concerns, right? Because it's written by a level of bias. And then, I saw notes here on, like, there's a feeling of targeting certain communities. Like, the questions are skewed in a certain way and then target certain communities. So in that sense, I do think there's something to this.
Yeah.
That it needs to be heard, but.
Yep, I would agree. Okay. This one I thought was interesting. It was sponsored by the Brockton School Committee, and it's to increase compulsory attendance So I think this one, maybe it is, because I think it's so new to us, maybe worth reading through. I'll try to abbreviate some of the whereas. Let's see. So it talks about the benefits of school attendance. So it improves economic and social mobility, et cetera, increase, higher needs for higher levels of education. So an increased compulsory attendance age aims to reduce racial and class disparities in education attainment. And whereas economic statistics show high school dropouts are more likely than graduates to be poor, unemployed, or in jail, and whereas a growing body of research indicates that increasing the minimum school leaving age to 18 not only increases high school graduation rates, but significantly improves the life outcomes of students who otherwise would have dropped out. And whereas we are responsible for ensuring all children of the Commonwealth receive a high-quality education, whereas graduation rates and post-secondary opportunities have been proven to improve when students are required to remain in school until age of 18. Therefore, be it resolved that MASC recommends that the Mass Legislature increase the compulsory attendance age from 16 to 18. Before we discuss this, I realized, I'm sorry, Leah, I know you had a question on the last one, so I apologize.
Honestly, it was answered. It was just a little bit of expansion on what exactly the MASC would be investigating in terms of biases built into MCAS, which is what you guys started talking about. I really realized, so you answered that question.
Okay.
before I
All
even
right.
asked.
Great, thank you. And
Remind
please
us if
jump
we miss
in.
you. Like,
Yeah.
just be one of us.
Yeah, yep, please
you
jump in. So again, this was sponsored by the Brockman School Committee. At the presentation on this, there was a little bit of discussion and question about whether or not this would negatively impact students who are 17 or 18 years old, who routinely leave school after age 16 because of really tough circumstances where they need to be providing income to their families, et cetera. But I think the feedback really was that the resolution committee and the Brockton School Committee who put this forward were very mindful of that and wanted to have a mechanism to really push back and say that really needs to be delayed. It's much more important long-term to be in school, and then to maybe look at, wraparound services and other services, other ways to meet the needs of the families in the students that don't rely on the student being separated from their education. So I don't know, any thoughts or discussion on this one?
No, I think I fully support this.
I do as well. I do think that the other ways to close that gap are important.
Yeah.
It is to miss out on completing your education while it's important. Their points are very valid, right? That it has a long-term impact on their financial stability and capabilities.
I'd be curious to hear again, because I know it's a brand new topic for us. So Dr. Cabral and Mrs. Pruitt, if you have any thoughts, if this is a discussion point among your peer groups at all.
We do have, of course, concerns about students being able to leave school at the age of 16. That's particularly true of students that are moving into the district that are new to the community or even the country. And it's a lot harder for a student at that age and grade level to adjust to school that might be completely different from their prior experience, or maybe hadn't been involved in a formal education. We would love a way to encourage them to stay in school. At the same time, students at that age, we also want to encourage the opportunity for them to be involved in alternative types of programs, and we don't feel as though we have those in place just yet. It's one of those ideas that sounds great, but we don't necessarily have a twilight program or an evening school program or something that might better suit needs of students. So we would love for this to happen. We would love for it to be supported. We would love for it to be funded. A lot of these resolutions are just that.
Yeah.
They're really great ideas. They certainly make sense. There's no way they're going to be funded. for us. So if you're asking for maybe a recommendation, I don't necessarily have a recommendation on it.
Yep.
We would like to have more supports in place for students for sure. We need that right now,
Yeah.
as it is.
Yes, any thoughts?
I would just add that in order to find a job it's very difficult to find a job without a high school diploma. And so what we can do to get students to finish high school is extremely important. But I agree, obviously, with Dr. Cabral in the sense that there's other ways that we can target students who are struggling with attendance, and we need funding for that in order to do that. And so while I support students, anything we can do to get students to stay in school and complete high school, we also have to, on the other hand, know that there will be a cost associated with that, and that we'll have to be mindful of budgeting in that sense.
All right. Any other feedback from the committee? Okay. All right, next up is Resolution 3, safe storage of firearms. This was sponsored by the Framingham School Committee. Well, let's see, so skip some of the whereases. Approximately 1,200 children and teens die by gun suicide each year, and over 80% of children under 18 who died by firearm suicide used a gun belonging to a family member. In incidents of gun violence on school grounds, up to 80% of shooters under the age of 18 obtain guns from their own home or that of a relative or friend. An estimated 4.6 million American children live in households with at least one loaded, unlocked firearm. And research shows that secure firearm storage practices are associated with up to a 78% reduction in the risk of self-inflicted firearm injuries and up to an 85% reduction in the risk of unintentional firearm injuries among children and teens. Evidence strongly suggests that secure firearm storage is an essential component to any effective strategy to keep schools and students safe. So let's see. Oh, there's more. Okay. There are several third-party programs that endorse this. National PTA, the Be Smart program. Secure firearms storage is a legal requirement in Massachusetts, and failure to comply can lead to criminal prosecution, jail time, fines, etc. American Academy of Pediatrics recommends strong firearms shortage. So therefore be resolved that the MASC recommends all districts direct their superintendent and staff to create an appropriate communication to parents and guardians that explains the importance of secure firearm storage to protect children and teens from unauthorized access to unsecured firearms and their legal obligations consistent with Massachusetts safe storage law. And furthermore, be it resolved that MASC urges other communities to work with their local law enforcement agencies, health agencies, and nonprofit organizations to collaborate and increase efforts to inform district parents and guardians of their obligations regarding secure storage of firearms in their homes and vehicles. During the discussion, there was some concern raised about asking superintendents to develop communications that others thought might be more appropriately developed by other parties in Massachusetts, such as the Attorney General's office, given that it does reference that there's Mass General Law, or there are some nonprofits that have produced materials, et cetera. So there was concern about, again, like kind of putting something on superintendents without the superintendents buying into having that be put on them. So open for discussion.
Sorry, just so that you know, this one and a couple of others in here, we are fortunate that we have great partners with our police and fire. And I certainly do not write such things, but I have asked the police chief to provide information, and we annually share that in our district newsletters to families. We already do this, but to be clear, I don't write.
Yep.
This information, we get it from our police chief, and I'm very thankful for that.
And then before we get to school committee,
Chrissy, any, want to add to that?
No, I agree. I think that that would be a message that I would like to come from the police department as well.
Yeah, okay. Okay, as school committee?
I would support a revised resolution that put the responsibility either on someone like the Attorney General's office or the local police department, and have that distributed through the vehicles of the communication vehicles of the schools. I think this is an incredibly important message. I hope everyone who watches and rewatches this takes it to heart, because it's another opportunity to hear it, but I do think it's an unfair expectation to put on individuals who would not be well-versed in all of the things that could be communicated through the appropriate resources of the police department.
And Lauren, did you have?
I support that. That's exactly what my reaction was when you were reading it.
Okay, all right, Jackie, Nancy, Leah, any?
I agree with what was said.
Yeah, I agree with what Kelly said.
Okay, all right. This one was a good one too. School bus Stop Arm Surveillance Act and Enforcement Penalties. This is sponsored by the Peabody School Committee. And I'll give you, I will do some of the background on this, because again, I don't know if it's something that's obvious or that we've discussed. Although it's against the law in Massachusetts to pass a stopped school bus with a stop arm extended and flashing lights while student passengers get on and off the bus, unless witnessed by a police officer, the penalties for passing a stopped school bus are minimal. Let's see, there was a survey found that motorists illegally pass stopped school buses, which we know these kinds of violations are rampant. So technical advances have now made public digital video violation detection monitoring systems to detect drivers failing to stop for school buses, and that penalties for passing a stopped school bus utilizing a digital video violation monitoring system should be commensurate with the same penalties imposed for such action if witnessed by a police officer. So the resolution is that the MASC calls on the Mass legislature to enact legislation to pass into law the ability for cities and towns to install on all school buses live digital video detection monitoring systems for the purpose of enforcing violations against the owner of a motor vehicle who has failed to stop for a school bus when required to do so by law. And part of the discussion was that this does not require districts to install this type of technology. There was discussion about the fact that many districts don't own their buses, so how would that work, et cetera. But I think the real point was that for districts that do have and use this technology, and there are some that have gotten grants or they've been able to build this technology into their buses, they would like the penalty to be the same as if the infraction were witnessed by a police officer. So, any feedback or discussions on that?
Just coming to mind quickly where it says, they want the the legislation to pass a law.
Yes.
But then who's going to pay for it? Again, do you know what I'm saying? Who's going to pay for the camera?
Well,
Who's
but
gonna-
the ability.
Well, no, I get that, but
Yeah.
it just pops in my head every time they say this.
Yeah.
Who's going to pay for it?
It's,
So,
you're going to ask that with all.
everything,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, but again, that question did come up, and it was, again, like, it's not saying, they're not asking
Yeah.
the legislature to mandate this, but to just say, when districts opt for this technology, to allow and I guess by state law, the penalty that is allowed for an infraction that's captured this way is not the same as if an officer captures it, which on the surface doesn't make any sense to me. There may be, the legislature, of course, may have a reason for something or whatever, but anyway, so yeah. And as we know, we ask the legislature to do a lot, and
Doesn't always get
not
done.
everything gets
Done.
resolved, but I think this would just bring some visibility around that on the surface it doesn't make sense that they can't
So
capture
just
people,
from
so.
our perspective in this district only, we do have the arms and we do have cameras.
Mhm.
We have had some difficulty with the cameras though,
Yeah.
honestly, in terms of a car, the speed of the car, the make of the car,
Mhm.
the camera's not always working when we ask for the footage, things of that nature. But in terms of where we stand in Easton with that, we do have both of these things right now.
Yeah, but if somebody was caught, then I guess the penalty is not the same as if a police officer.
We have reported people.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, right. So any other kind of feelings, feedback from the committee on this one? I think it would be interesting to see if it gets amended.
I would support it, given the ability for each town to make the decision on the cameras, and the fact that that technology, while maybe not fully there yet, it is being used in some cases to issue tickets and things. So.
I do wonder though, would the responsibility of turning the footage over fall on the bus company? Right?
Yeah, I think
To or would it be a link to the police? Would all the cameras be linked to the police? And
And the
that's,
police have to monitor it, or is it
Right.
if there was an incident?
yeah,
I mean,
I don't know if it's very,
If they pass the arm and there's an incident, I guess then you would report it. But yes, who's it on?
right.
We've had, I mean, obviously the drivers, it is very frustrating for them, and they have reported people to us that have done that.
Yeah, I would think as a driver, it's terrifying.
Yeah, it's very scary.
This next one was another interesting one. So aligning taxing authority with the required local contributions. This is sponsored by the Arlington School Committee. And my understanding is, I think this is a resolution that, I think it's more to get the attention of the legislature about some of the issues with the funding formula than any expectation that we're going to override Prop 2.5. But it's, one of the many ways, right, trying to get creative about getting attention to something that's just not getting the attention and action that it needs. So, I'll read through again as much of the whereas as makes sense. MGL establishes a required local contribution that defines a minimum appropriation for education. So that's every district has that. One element of determining that is local effort from property wealth, determined by using a municipality's equitized valuation, which we know very well in Easton tends to be a fairly robust and healthy number. The ability of municipalities to raise revenue is constrained by Proposition 2.5. Let's see, it gives the statewide required local contribution. Let's see, was that 6? Yeah, so it gives a very large number of what the statewide local contribution in fiscal year 2022 was, which is like 6.8 billion, and then in fiscal 2023 it was 7.1 billion, and that was an increase of 4.97%. And then statewide required local contribution and from fiscal 2023 to 2024 increased by 5.58%. And the statewide local requirement, let's see, for fiscal 24 and the projection for fiscal 25 increased by 5.33%. So it's basically demonstrating that at least for each of the past 3 years, the required local contribution is calculated by the funding formula has increased by almost double Proposition 2.5 or more. And so the resolution is that the MASC calls for the enactment of legislation that would increase the municipality's levy limit by the amount of increase of the required local contribution in excess of 2.5%, granting the municipality the ability to raise local revenues mandated by Chapter 70. So I think it's a very interesting approach and interesting numbers to really drive home the fact that even for, we talk a lot about how we're a minimum aid district and Student Opportunity Act and the Easton triangle of circumstances that put us at a unique disadvantage with the funding formula. But even just looking across the state, it's pretty stark that the local contributions are increasing at a higher rate across the board than municipalities are allowed to even assess and collect from their communities. So, thoughts on this one? I mean, personally, I'm
again, I think it's does MASC think we're going to override Prop 2.5? No, but I think it's an interesting argument and talking point that I would be in favor of.
Like you
them
said, it's
raising.
a creative way to put a spotlight on 2.5.
Yeah, yeah. So,
You explained that well.
Yes.
When you read the resolution, I thought, this is going to take a lot of explanation, but you did it really well.
oh, thank you.
Just the way it's worded is not.
Intuitive, no.
Yeah, there's a
I
lot
read it a
of
few times earlier today.
repetitive numbers, yep.
Yeah, good, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. All right, thank you. Resolution 6, we're getting there. Support of legislation to improve the fiscal health of rural school districts, sponsored by Deerfield, Sunderland, Whately, and Frontier Regional School Committees. As anybody who's had the benefit of going to MASC events knows, there is a strong rural schools contingent who are advocating for the needs of schools that are, not in this kind of closer to this part of the state, urban and suburban districts, because they do have unique needs. So I won't read through, let me think, I'll just do some just quick highlights of some of the things that they have brought up quite often. Let's see, so, and some of this does relate to us as a declining enrollment district, which contributes to our status as minimum aid. So the Student Opportunity Act, however, the most needy rural and declining enrollment districts have received less than 1% of the Student Opportunity Act increase in funding. So we know how that feels. And no fewer than 4 recent state and legislative commissions have reviewed the looming crisis facing rural schools and concluded that rural school districts are seriously under-resourced and underfunded. One of these commissions was specifically created by the Student Opportunity Act to study and make recommendations concerning the long-term fiscal health of rural school districts that are facing or may face declining student enrollment, including things like expanding the rural school aid grant program, including a low and declining student enrollment factor within the foundation budget. There was a commission that concluded that districts with very low student enrollment cost 16.7% per student more to operate than the state average. And small K-12 regional school districts cost 22.7% more to operate than larger schools. So they are urging that MASC urge the legislature to pass comprehensive legislation encompassing all recommendations from the Legislative Commission on the Fiscal Health of Rural Schools report, A Sustainable Future for Rural Schools. And so, as far as this goes, I think it becomes a question of where's the money coming from? Right, and so it's kind of, say you have this pool, right? Is it about reallocating the pool, and then does that reallocation further harm us? Does it further harm, which districts would be kind of losing out unless the legislature's reform includes an infusion of funds specifically for those schools? So the always popular who pays question, but from having listened to the presentations from the districts that are impacted, it does certainly sounds like a very challenging environment, and they have, these very large regional school districts with massive transportation budgets, and just really like geographically sprawling areas to cover and to try to deliver services. And, we'll think about, right, the benefit that we have if we're delivering services literally on one campus, right? So the beauty of being able to shift an educator or support staff from one person to another. And, there are parts of the state that's just not an option. So anyway, no, I don't think something that really directly impacts us other than the who pays question.
Right.
Yeah.
But like you said, that 1% that, the 1% increase in funding, less than.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Right.
We'll listen.
Yes. Fully adjusting Chapter 78 for inflation. So this is sponsored by the Everett School Committee. Let's see, so we have the Chapter 70 foundation formula. The Foundation Inflation Index is an essential element of the school aid formula. And Chapter 70
limits that to no more than 4.5% if inflation exceeds that amount. And as we know, in recent years, it has greatly exceeded 4.5%. The application of that limit in fiscal years 2023 and 2024 has reduced the base used to calculate foundation budgets for fiscal 25 and future years by about 6%, below what is needed to maintain purchasing power of Massachusetts schools. A legislative change would be needed to fully reflect inflation in the Chapter 70 definition of the Foundation Inflation Index and to eliminate the cap in future years, to restore the purchasing power of district foundation budgets, to reflect the intended resource allocations of the Student Opportunity Act. So the resolution is worded that MASC calls upon the legislature to advance legislation mandating inflation index catch-ups to Chapter 70 foundation aid that fully account for realized inflation that has occurred since the passage of the Student Opportunity Act, and that MASC work with the legislature to ensure in future years where realized inflation is above 4.5%, an inflation index catch-up, in subsequent years, inflation index catch-ups are made to Chapter 78, and that realized inflation is used in the formulas to calculate Chapter 78 into perpetuity. So I think this aligns with MASS's concerns about inflation and some discussions and advocacy for Down the Hill earlier this year. So any discussions or comments about that? Okay, all right. All right, equitable funding for non-regional school districts with high transportation costs, sponsored by the Plymouth School Committee. So you can imagine how large Plymouth is and why this is an issue for them. So just kind of quickly moving through some of these ones that may not directly impact us. But some school districts that are not regional, that are very large, have significant transportation costs. So the resolution is asking that the state recognize the financial challenges faced by many non-regional school districts due to their higher transportation costs and longer routes. The state acknowledges that non-regional school districts should have access to flexible support similarly to regional districts when costs are extraordinary. A special fund shall be established to provide financial assistance to non-regional school districts with higher transportation costs. This fund shall be known as the Extraordinary Routes Relief Fund. I'm sure, Nancy, you're thinking, who's paying for this? But
Well, that's everything, but it's true, like, I mean, even in
Yeah.
Easton, 29 square miles, and we've got buses going, I think buses are just it's so expensive,
Yeah.
you've got sports, you've got your kids going on, it's just ridiculous, so.
Yep.
I don't know.
We would need to be paying above 125% of the average of the state.
Yep. Yeah, so the next page has a lot of the details on it. It would basically work as a circuit breaker.
Yeah.
So there'd be a threshold. I mean, it certainly seems like, as in terms of a recommendation, very well thought out and I think very well worded. And really gives a good detailed rationale.
Yeah.
They do have a proposed approach that makes, like, in terms of the rationale.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see, so this is from,
So where are we at 8?
oh, 8. So any,
So that's just more, oh, you mean whether we support it or not? I think this is just one that, I mean, you want money for transportation, but like we said, who's going to pay for it? We're already paying for buses.
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I could see, I wouldn't be opposed to supporting it. Again, I don't think it's going to get anywhere anytime soon, but I think in terms of maybe at least raising the issue with the state and trying to shine a further light on the transportation funding problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
I
Any
don't quite
thoughts?
understand how it's not equitable though, but,
How so?
because it's Plymouth, like if we're talking Plymouth,
Yeah,
it's the largest town square mile in the state.
yeah. So it would be, but any,
But it even,
any district that has transportation costs that exceed a certain percentage of the statewide average. So it wouldn't be necessarily just Plymouth, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so you could, again, you could have a rural, non-regional district. So the regional districts do get transportation support already, right? Right, that's, is that
But the-
right? That's right.
and
Like
the public
Southeastern
schools
Regional
don't.
is not footing the bill for transporting kids from all of the surrounding towns
Right.
fully.
Whitman-Hanson is a regional district. They receive funding, supplemental funding from the state for transportation. Silver Lake, as a regional district, also receives funding
Yeah,
from the state.
Bridgewater, Rainham, for the
Yes.
high, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so just, yeah, kind of to treat these huge sprawling districts as sort of the same.
Right.
Okay.
Like Plymouth would probably be the, even larger than like a Whitman-Hanson together. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Let's see, so this is a vocational technical one. So MSBA grants evaluation for Chapter 74, sponsored by Tri-County Regional Vocational Technical High School Committee. Let's see, so the whereas is that Chapter 74 VOTEC schools incur higher costs to build Chapter 74 educational training spaces. MSBA currently assesses all school building projects at equal value. And VOTEC renovation and building costs are dispersed to sending districts, impacting local budgets. So they would like to resolve that MASC calls upon the legislature and MSBA to create an evaluated tiered system to separately assess the cost of elementary, comprehensive high schools, and vocational, technical, and agricultural schools, resulting in a true cost reimbursement for each school category.
But don't, we were just talking about that, the regional schools already get funds, extra funds to do, what?
Us.
That's what I'm saying.
They
had that
assess
thought
us
too.
for capital
Yeah.
And
projects.
so we have some classes now at Oliver Ames, correct, that are technical, vocational,
Yeah.
right?
But I think this is talking about schools that have that designation, so that when they do school building projects that go
Yeah.
through MSBA,
Right,
they're getting the same, say, cost per square footage, et cetera, as a traditional high school? That's
I
the
would-
argument that
I
they're
would want to
making?
look into that because I've seen the cost of the regional vocational schools going up, and they're a lot more than the comprehensive schools going up. I don't mean to question them, I just can't answer that, but I do know that we do receive assessments, capital assessments
yes.
from the 2 vocational schools that we send students to. And would certainly appreciate not being given that assessment, but again, I don't know how this would be funded and what it means in terms of diverting funds from non-vocational school projects.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's my point.
Yeah, so yeah, I wonder if it would, right, divert from non-vocational school projects, or could there be a benefit where if these projects were funded at a different rate, does it reduce the community contribution
Right.
to those projects?
Yeah.
So
I
I
would only
could,
support a resolution like this if it did,
yeah,
personal opinion. Like, it would have to
benefit,
correspondingly take the load off of others.
Yeah.
In that process, right?
Yeah.
That would be my personal opinion.
I agree. Any thoughts? Any other thoughts? Okay, all right. Another one, Chapter 74, expansion and capacity in Chapter 74 vocational technical programs. This is sponsored by Tri-County Regional. So some of the whereas that they are experiencing unprecedented applications for admissions. Students are being waitlisted, and it's preventing non-member and school choice students from attending. There are 92 schools in Massachusetts that have Chapter 74 programs, but there are gaps where students do not have access to any Chapter 74 programming in school. And they serve a higher percentage of students with IEPs and 504s and who are more economically disadvantaged than their sending districts. Curious to see the stats on that, actually. I don't think that's universal. Massachusetts is in need of more skilled trade workers, et cetera. So the resolution is that MASC calls upon the governor and legislature to support the expansion of capacity at the current Chapter 74 schools and to work with districts that lack access to vocational schools to create programs. and that MASC call upon the legislature to convene a special commission to consider changes to the current law and regulation relating to the overall authority of the MSBA, alternative overall financing structures, standards for project eligibility, appropriate financial assistance. That seems like it probably went with the prior resolution, actually. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it's just I think that went with the prior resolution. Okay, so I think this is really just about the expansion of capacity. So I know we've talked about some of this, curious to know the district's thoughts on how to tackle making
And by
valuable.
district, you mean
Yes,
me?
yeah. Because
Well,
I think we agree that there is a need to make this very valuable educational opportunities available
without
to more
question.
students.
I think the
Yes.
question is who provides
Yes.
it. There are, as a Chapter 74 certified superintendent, myself, in addition to comprehensive, I have long tried to improve or increase our capacity at OA to provide some of the career and technical pathways that I believe are completely possible for us to do. We don't receive the same funding that a vocational school does toward the Chapter 74, Chapter 70, the foundation formula, excuse me. There are some, we do not have intention at this point to add an auto body shop or a machine tech shop. However, a performing arts program is a vocational technical certification program. I'll use that as an example. We clearly have a very robust program. And I would rather see support in helping a comprehensive school district move toward Chapter 74 certification in a program like that than add to the facility or infrastructure of a vocational technical school so that they can offer that. I think that every student should have an opportunity to explore whatever they wish to explore, but having the vocational technical schools to be expanding beyond what was traditionally considered trades, perhaps, to programs that we can successfully run in a comprehensive high school, I think the expansion should happen in both places. And so that's a concern that I have. I would like Chapter 74 programming that doesn't compete with Chapter 74 sending schools to be implemented in comprehensive high schools. But that is going to be even more difficult if there are further expansion possibilities for vocational technical schools to increase those opportunities.
Yep. Thank you. Anything to add to that? No?
I fully agree with what Dr. Cabral said.
Okay. All right. School committee, any questions or comments? I think that aligns completely with messaging that we've been just kind of discussing all along around the opportunities. And then I would personally, as mentioned, any expansion, I agree, not only, to include comprehensive school opportunities to offer programs, but I would also not support this personally if it were not also coupled with some revisions to admissions criteria, which we know are some
Right.
schools have voluntarily adopted more criteria that are designed to reduce potential bias in admissions
Right.
practices, but certainly not all. And I think that's an issue as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We're not going to do the expiring
No,
resolutions.
no,
We're
we
just
can't.
going to
Yeah.
look at those
Yes.
as we go along. Okay.
Yeah, yep. So these are just examples of ones from.
And we've discussed most of them.
We have, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, so Nancy and Lauren, do you have any other questions or concerns? before you head into this. All right, well, thank you for going into the lion's den.
No sweat.
Yeah, no, it was very, it was kept to an hour, so it was pretty tight, but I think it gave some good perspective on some of the issues that might be on other folks' minds. Okay, all right. Schedule of payments, so since the school committee last met, warrants 016S and 017S have been completed, and 020S and 22S are in process, and those were all for just routine operational expenses. Okay, public comments. We do have a couple members of the public. Are either here to make comments? Well, thank you for your attendance. All right, next up we have superintendent notes. Dr. Cabral.
Thanks. Just an update, not a concrete update, but an update from my capacity as a board member of PCC at Stonehill. Last summer, PCC did not run. Unfortunately, there were not the number of enrollment spots that made it possible to fully fund the program. That was a confluence of factors similar to what we're facing in our districts. It escalated, highly escalated, almost doubled food costs. Rentals for Stonehill, including an office that we had there, had increased. Just the expenses went up as enrollment went down. We also had a pretty regularly recurring contingent from China that is not attending anymore, and so that was a population that immediately came off of the enrollment. So we had, I believe it was approximately 100 and almost 50 enrolling, and we need much closer to 250. So it was sort of put in abeyance last summer. We did have a meeting, the board had a meeting last week, and are trying to determine if we will run it again this summer or if it will be put in abeyance indefinitely. It's just a lot of competition right now with students going to athletic camps and music camps and sleepaway camps and working jobs. And that competition, unfortunately, has created the spread out of the students attending. We've tried a lot of things. We went from a full 6-week program to a 4-week option for students if they wanted to then go to a sports camp or what have you. We worked on the tuition, really kept it really low. We subsidized a lot of the tuition with our early college funding. It is an early college initiative where they actually stay at the college. And that funding has expired with the ARPA and ESSER funding expiring at the end of this year. So all of those things together have made it really difficult. What we've decided to do as a board is we cut back a lot of expenses. Don't have an office at Stonehill anymore. For example, our executive director is stepping down to give an opportunity for a new executive director who may have different ideas or a different approach. So what we decided to do was we're going to put feelers out there for potentially a person who may or may not. It's been a sitting superintendent or retired superintendent for several years now. Different ones, but for several years. So whether it's a retired superintendent or someone who's willing to take on the executive director position to try to see what we can do to rekindle the program and get some more enrollment. But if the enrollment does not go up again, I do think that at the very least it would not run this summer, and then the future of it would be a little bit more up in the air at that point. So that's just an update on PCC. I have gotten emails from parents expressing their disappointment and their desire for it to continue. We certainly do. Unfortunately, despite social media pushes and in-person orientations and student testimonials and all of the other things that we've tried to do. It hasn't worked. I'm not saying it's impossible, but we're gonna try to shift into the direction, see what we can do there.
When does enrollment open?
I'm sorry?
When does enrollment open?
That's a good question. There is a PCC website and it's on there. I don't know if we're actually gonna get to the point where there can be applications. We're gonna meet again to see where that goes. Obviously, if we can't get an executive director, that is a big game changer as well. So, more information to come. We also had our PACE meeting last night, the Promoting a Sustainable Easton, another 5 hours. But we'd got a 10-minute break, so it was fine. A lot of good questions about the school department as well as the progress and deliverables going forward. I really encourage people to look at the video. In a video, you can fast forward, you can skip parts.
You can fold laundry while you watch.
You can multitask, you can have an earbuds and do your grocery shopping, what have you, watch it in 20-minute chunks. But it's really important information, really important information. And a lot of it are questions that the general public seems to have about things, but we never get those questions as a school department. And so having townspeople bring up these questions is great. It gives us the opportunity to answer questions that we don't know exist, or misconceptions or misinformation. So at the very least, if people aren't able to tune in and get that kind of information, we still regularly encourage people to call or come by central office. There's always somebody there that can talk to a resident and answer questions. We certainly prefer that than people getting information from others who don't have factual information and have that kind of information perpetuated. It can be really damaging to our efforts. And so we're always looking, we will always respond. So please take advantage of that. And if it's not possible, then I suggest the second best would be the PACE webpage on the town website, or they are long meetings, like I said, fast forward, watch it in chunks, what have you. It is a lot of really good information. We did, I know other people can talk about it, but I have to talk about and thank our first responders who played against our unified basketball team this evening, right before this meeting. It was a great game, a lot of turnout from community members, family, staff, and a lot of student athletes also turned out to cheer them on, which we have at all of our games. We really have an excellent student contingency that really lifts one another up, which is something really special about Easton. It really is. If people don't have a basis for comparison, it is extremely special. And my condolences to the first responders. Better luck next time. Our officiants were fantastic. Director Davidson and Coach Laney. We are very fortunate to have an excellent coach in Krista Marani, our OA English department chair, and it just was an amazing event. That was a fundraiser for our student organization, and people can add their information to it if they'd like, but we'll be posting about it. It was a heck of a lot of fun, and we really appreciate, again, that community investment. And we had, I didn't count them, but 20 first responders there, or close to it, that donated their time and sweat equity to really give us a great contest, and we appreciate it, and kudos to our student athletes who did an amazing job. And then finally, just kind of a Corkine update that I've been talking about. We did meet with the CPC, the Community Preservation Committee. We received some feedback from Dr. Bennett, who is a resident that has a lot of information about materials and what goes into materials. We are going to put forward a warrant article at the special town meeting on November 18th to not repeal the language of the amendment that went into the town meeting about what's allowed for us to put on the surfacing of the RO playground, but to repeal it a little bit to make it more possible for us to have a resolution to our issues if they're unable to be resolved. Right now, again, the last school committee meeting, I did give an update on this, if people would like to refer to that, and the CPC meeting had an update, if you'd like to refer to that for more information. But the core keen that was put in the first RO playground, the north, is failing considerably, and we're on a tight timeline to put the surfacing on the south playground. And if the core keen isn't resolved, we will not be able to come back to town meeting to have that language massaged a bit in time to have the surfacing put down in the spring. And so we're looking to have it in place if, in fact, the core keen cannot be resolved, the core keen issue, which to date it has not by the manufacturer or the installer, unfortunately, but we're working diligently on it. There are some other vendors that we're looking at that have some other kinds of materials. We also talked about a potential, don't know if it's structurally or from an engineering perspective possible, but the design team is looking into it, a hybrid option of where there might be core keen surfacing, if we can resolve the core keen issues, with small, minimal as we can make it, areas where it's breaking down right now, being a very low or minimal PFAS crumb rubber surfacing. Not under it, abutting it. So cutting out sections of core keen where it's failing, under the swing sets, around the spinners, and making as small a space as possible a different kind of surfacing. So we're working on that, and we're reaching out to other people in the country who have used core keen. I think we're speaking soon to someone, I believe it's Philadelphia. We don't have a lot of options, unfortunately, but we're working diligently on this. I want to assure everyone that we are not trying to subvert the language at all. We're just trying to make it possible to have the project completed, and the longer we wait, the more costly it can be in liquidated contractual damages, and obviously we don't want that. We also are facing a very imminent reality that there may not be any surfacing to the south playground until the spring. And the reason for that is simply because without the core keen issues resolved, we have great reservations about putting it in the south. We don't want to invest that kind of taxpayer money irresponsibly without knowing for sure that it can be rectified. And unfortunately, that has to be done when there are several 50-degree and climbing days in a row. And obviously, that window is closing very quickly. So unless we are able to have the installer and the manufacturer problem solve the issue and rectify it in time, we are going to miss that opportunity. And so it is possible. It will need to be done in the spring. It's also possible, obviously I don't know the answer to this yet, but I need people to be aware that it is also possible, should the core keen not be repaired to satisfaction on the north playground and becomes a trip or other hazard, it may need to be roped off in areas or closed. We are obviously not looking for that to happen, but if it does, we're on one campus, we'll figure out other solutions, the kids will be fine, and we will creatively manage where they're having recess. We've done it before, and the children are fine. And the end result is a really state-of-the-art, phenomenal play space that most other places don't have. We believe it will ultimately be worth it, but we do have these completely unavoidable, uncontrollable issues at the moment, but we are working to resolve them, and further updates will come as soon as I have them. And that's all I have, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments?
I do. The original timeline for the all-in completed project for both playgrounds. Was that November, or was it just the north playground was going to be completed in November? Or do I have that all wrong?
No, the north playground is considered done,
Okay.
except for the fact that the corkine is now failing.
Okay,
The south playground, the original timeline was for that surface to be put in October, a little before now,
okay,
but it's not in yet.
right.
We also are waiting on some of the equipment that was ordered to come in. That also needs to be installed and in place before the surfacing goes in. So there are a couple reasons why that's not in yet. But as soon as we get to where the temperature is not what needs to be, including even on a warm day if it's raining, there's a lot of things that can change the trajectory of that timeline. But obviously that window is closing would fall upon us in New England. So that is yet to be determined. It is moving to more than likely that south will be closed until the spring. And we had hoped that that would be done by November, fully open, and both playgrounds would be completely finished.
Sure. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you. Assistant Superintendent notes. Mrs. Pruitt.
Thank you. We had our first professional development day of the year on October 15th. We had our, if I can use the term biannually, right?
Yeah.
Security training where our staff, all of our staff, had the opportunity to be trained by our first responders. We're very lucky to have that relationship with our first responders, as well as the company that we utilize, Synergy. So that ran seamlessly on October 15th for half of the day. We also had an introduction to, an overview introduction for our teachers and paraprofessionals on our multi-tiered systems of support. MTSS is the acronym that we use. That session, the purpose of that session was really to provide common language and an overarching overview of what MTSS is. While there are many staff that have had training on MTSS and know what MTSS is, this was an opportunity for us to kind of norm, create that common language and norm everyone on the language itself. So now that day is over, we have our next professional development day on November 5th, which is Election Day. There will be no school for students, and we will be running various sessions throughout the day, more of a choice. We will be introducing the strategic plan to our staff. And again, that's just an introduction because it will be approved later that month here at school committee.
On November
13th. Is it 13th? Yes. 13th, 18th, around there. And then
November 14th, sorry.
14th. We also have sessions around kind of re-looking at UBD, Understanding by Design, which is our curriculum unit writing. We'll be exploring our district curriculum accommodation plan, having some sessions on culturally responsive instruction, some behavior management sessions, as well as our students at Oliver Ames will be running a session that they did today and this week actually for our students beyond the stereotypes. So we're really excited to have our students actually be presenting to our staff as well. So that will be out to teachers hopefully next week. Sorry, there's some flies roaming around. I also wanted to share with you, last night we had multicultural night where we had over 100 participants join us at Richardson Olmsted. We had just nice conversation and food, of course. It was wonderful to see families interact with each other and share just many wonderful opportunities where they could share and have conversations. We used our devices, Pocket Talk. We showed parents how to utilize them. We also had some, the head of our LPAC was going around and introducing himself, our EL, Parent Advisory Council. So it was really, it was such a wonderful night, and having the students there. And
Can you just explain what Pocket Talk is for people?
oh yes,
that might
yeah,
not-
Pocket Talk is a device that looks like a cell phone, and if I speak another language, Leah could speak English into the Pocket Talk, and it's set to say Portuguese, and it will then speak to me in Portuguese. And it's a wonderful, wonderful tool. We're actually purchasing some more with some of our Title III funding, so that we can have more on hand in schools for our families.
Right
which is-
now, there's one in every
each-
office
yes.
of every school, main office, and there's one in central office, and some of our ML teachers have them as well. It's a great tool.
Right.
And we've seen our ML parent engagement skyrocket. So it's a real testament to the work that Ann Weintraub, our ELL coordinator, is doing with them. Also Chrissy, of course, and our ML teachers. They're there, they're showing up at these many events, the LPAC events. It's been extraordinary. And so it's really exciting with, Carol's Perez also providing interpreter services with two of our other administrators. They took an interpreter translation certification course, so they're providing those services as well. It's incredible. It's really great.
Okay, so is Pocket Talk something that could be used, for example, during parent-teacher conferences?
Yes, absolutely.
That's great.
Absolutely. So we are purchasing 10 more currently, so that we will have them in time for parent-teacher conferences.
It's not great for a group of people listening to a presentation.
Right,
Because
correct.
it's like an interpreter.
Right.
So we are working on some other ways of, we tried out some things at the last parent conferences. Some were more successful than others, but in terms of hearing or reading a presentation of the principal or teachers addressing a group of people. But it's great for the one-on-one interactions.
Yeah.
And I actually misspoke. We're not using Title III money for that. We're actually using, in our operating budget, we have specific lines to each school for EL supplies.
Yep.
EL curriculum, EL materials. So, and again, just so the public is aware, we right now are synonymously using the acronyms EL and ML. However, we really are working to transfer to the term ML for multilingual learners rather than English language learners. However, the state still utilizes EL, and even with the mandate of having an LPAC, it is EL. So I just want to make sure that's clarified, and so that the school committee is aware of that as well, that those two terms are being used simultaneously.
Sorry, it's similar to when we say STEAM, and the state is still stuck in STEM.
Yep.
We're just advanced
Yeah.
in a lot of areas. I don't know
Yeah.
what to say, but yeah.
And also to reiterate what Dr. Cabral said, a huge shout out to our Director of Curriculum and EL, Ann Weintraub, who pulled this together, and our ML staff is just remarkable. The way that they were interacting with, the kids are running up and hugging them, and just seeing all of the way that the relationships that they built with families is really remarkable. The last thing I would like to share with you is a great thing. Christine Conley is one of our 8th grade science teachers and a STEAM team member extraordinaire. She actually put in a proposal to present at the Massachusetts Association for Science Teachers, and it was accepted. So she will be representing Easton in a presentation called Activating Genetics Using Culturally Responsive Teaching Strategies. So great shout out to Christine Conley. She's very excited, and that her presentation was accepted, and we're just super proud of her accomplishment and all that she's doing for us in Easton Public Schools.
She is a wonderful teacher.
Yes. That's all I have for you this evening.
Can I add one more item? I apologize.
course,
I don't have all the details tonight, but I did also want to end on a positive note, and that is that the architectural firm of Perkins Eastman, who designed Blanche Ames has just earned their 3rd architectural award for Blanche Ames, and we are being featured in several architectural publications. We are currently working on a press release of that, and we'll make sure we send it, as I usually do, to the whole district and to all of you. But it is, the most recent one is really one of the most prestigious in the industry, and Blanche Ames was named as the grand prize winner.
That's great.
So I'm super excited to share that with you guys. I wasn't going to say it because I don't have all the details, but I didn't want to end with like playgrounds aren't going to open. But so
No, but they're phenomenal. I mean, they really are phenomenal.
yeah. So I wanted to just let you know that that is coming.
Awesome.
And I have the cover of the publication, and it's got us on it, and it's really exciting. So I'm going to be really excited to share that with you guys. But it's going to be in more. I'm confident, and I knew when it was happening that it was super special in every way.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds biased, but I have experience in a lot of buildings, and this one is super special. So it's nice to see that validated by professionals in the field. So we will and it's great PR for Easton.
Yeah.
People are looking to send their kids. So I'm excited to share that with everybody, and we'll make sure everybody gets all the full details.
It's funny, throughout that process, Jane Martin, who was the first chair of the committee, kept saying to me, somebody has to put them in for an award. Somebody has to put them in for an award for the school. And I'm glad that's happening.
Jackie, you look like you're having a proud mama moment.
Yeah, you should.
School's your baby.
I had nothing to do with it. They did everything.
We know differently.
Just to add on to that, it's so fun to walk visitors around and see their reactions. Today we had a visitor in the district, and I brought him around, and when we turned the corner and I said, and this is our ramp instead of a grand staircase, to see his face, it was just remarkable. It really was remarkable, and just the oohs and the ahs throughout the tours is just, and it's just consistent with everyone that we give tours to.
Great. Oh, quick shout out, sorry, to the Easton Historical Society. We asked them if they had any quality portraits that we could get a print of Blanche Ames and her husband. They edited our request and gave us a picture of Blanche Ames, which is perfectly fine. Her husband was very influential in supporting her efforts, and so we wanted to have both. But we have a great print of Blanche Ames that we are going to be putting up in Central Admin. So a shout out to them for finding that and sending it to us so that we could purchase it for display appropriately in the school.
Awesome. All right. Good. Okay. Anything else? No. All right. Great. School committee notes. So Nancy.
Do you want to start with me, or like Lauren always is mad?
Yes.
Go ahead,
No,
go first.
You go.
All right, 2 things. Tomorrow, grade 4 RO Make a Difference Day in honor of Lindley Menard. We'll be planting tulips, painting rocks with messages. There's about 7 things going on, and it's going to be a nice day, and we have a lot of volunteers. You know, it's nice to keep Lindley in our memory. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, October 30th, DJ Henry Day at Oliver Ames High School. All kinds of assemblies and activities. And what? See? Call on her first. Oh, okay, that's it for me.
Okay. All right.
I'm not talking anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jackie.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Jackie. Come on, Jackie, I want something out of you.
I have to be able to leave the house first.
All right, Lauren.
Okay, so I will start with, it was so nice to have our students here with us prior to our meeting. No. I'll start over. It was so nice to have our students from the Student Advisory Committee here with us. We have Leah here with us now. It's always nice to hear hear them speak about the research that they do at the different schools and the feedback that they bring back to us. Another thing is that I had the privilege of volunteering last week. Was it last week?
Yeah,
I think
just
I
last
was
Friday. It's been a very long week, yes.
Yeah, so I was there on Wednesday for grade 4 Ability Awareness Day. That is a huge task put forth by the CPAC. Rachel Alterman is a Wonder Woman and is amazing. She is the current chair of the CPAC, and she put together this amazing day with 5 or 6 different stations.
Yep, 5 stations.
5
yep.
stations of walking, of the 4th grade students going to different stations to walk in people with disabilities' shoes. Not literally in their shoes, but have their shared experiences. It is amazing, and it is all volunteer run, and the district is really, really lucky that we are able to do it, and we have the volunteers. So next year, please volunteer.
Please, it was canceled last year because
Yeah.
we didn't have enough
And so the
volunteers,
current
so
fifth
we were very
graders
lucky. We had
weren't
so
able.
many. We had more than we've ever had before this year. That's great. We would really love for that to continue.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great interaction for the parents to have this activity with their students, and provokes a lot of wonderful conversations as well.
Exactly.
Yep, and I think they are planning to do it in the spring for grade 2. So there'll be another
Yep.
opportunity this year, hopefully, for folks to support
Yeah.
that through volunteering.
And the unified basketball game prior to this meeting was a joy to be at. It was a real proud moment to be a member of this community, and it was really fun to see the players and the first responders, and it was a great, great game, and it was fun. That's all I got.
All right,
Oh, and vote,
yes.
November 5th,
Or vote early.
or vote early
Yes,
Yep.
right now. Yep,
at Town Hall.
all right. Thank you. Kelly?
Thank you.
I just have a couple of quick highlights. So I am part of the wellness committee. We're starting to look at language I put in place a number of years ago and refresh that. So kudos to the team that is working to pull that together, and much appreciated for the thoughtfulness at which they're applying to it. So we are reenacting that. I'm going to read notes because I will not get it correct. But I know Jen's going to cover everything sports that she can, amazing and activities that are going on in the schools overall. But I do want to just talk for a moment about the marching band. So they do have this Sunday the MICCA state finals in Quincy. OA will perform at 4:30, but the show will actually start at 11:20. And UMass Amherst will perform, and they have 400 kids in their band this year. And UMass Amherst is performing at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. So it's a chance to see it early and support our kids if you did not make it out to their Tigerama event, which was also amazing. And then also on next Sunday, the 3rd, at Lawrence Veterans Memorial Stadium, OA will perform as part of the NESBA state finals at 6:30, but the whole division starts at 5. So an opportunity to hear amazing bands and support our kids. That's it. I will turn over to Jen to cover the next round of events
Yes.
for our amazing children.
So, just want to echo Lauren's compliments on Ability Awareness Day. I was able to go as well, and the company I work for has a colleague resource group called Accessibilities, where colleagues we do a lot, but this type of event is right up their alley with the kind of events that they support. So when there was a need for volunteers, I'd put it out to my colleague group, and a couple of colleagues were able to join us. So we were together Friday morning. It's very interesting, as Chrissy was saying, to bring, sort of outsiders into the district and to see their reactions. And they were so impressed with the event itself. They had asked if we could, if it would make sense to kind of put together a summary and we could share it out with the rest of the group at work and encourage them to encourage their districts to adopt a similar program.
That's awesome.
Really
that is
looking,
great.
they were like, had never, and they do a lot of work with the disability advocacy in communities, and had never seen an event like this, and just really saw the value of it. Had a great time there, and then we're incredibly impressed with the school campus. And with, I know that BA is our newest shiny thing in the district, but they were at RO and really were complimentary about how beautiful RO was, and really, how we walked in with Principal Getchell, and the way he knows all of his students' names, and it was just such a really great environment, a really, really great place to be. So Easton shows very well when we
Made you look very nice, right?
I'm thinking people who might be watching may not be familiar what an Ability Awareness Day kind of does. Just a quick example, if I might. For example, there are 5 stations, and there are different types of abilities, whether it's sensory impairments or visually impaired or hearing impaired, and it will take a student through what it's like to experience that on some level. For example, visually impaired, they had sheets of wax paper, and they would have objects underneath it, and really trying to discern what it was like with that impairment of the wax paper. For sensory or social emotional, they had this video that was very overwhelming, the perspective of a child in a shopping mall, and it really came at them with all the sights and the sounds, and very just giving. So when Vice Chair Loomis says, sort of walking in the shoes of a student with a disability, that's what it is. It's giving them that experience, picking up small items with gloves on was one they've had in the past. So that manual dexterity, so things of that nature.
Yep.
It's very creative, takes a ton of material and resources and ingenuity and creativity to put it all together, to keep it all updated. And so Rachel Alterman is phenomenal. And Marcy Schroeder, who worked with her in the past on it, and all of the parent volunteers. So you do not want your 4th grader, when they get there, to miss that kind of opportunity, or your 2nd grader. So parent volunteerism is really important for those programs. Our teachers are with their kids. We take in one class at a time. The teacher's there, but the stations need to be manned. So hopefully that helps give a sort of a view of what the stations sort of look like.
Yep. Thank you. And I was one of the things that I was really struck, because I was on the station that had the video, and the focus of it was originally designed as to have a student get a sense for an experience of what it might be like to have maybe autism or attention deficit disorder, and to be in an environment that's overstimulating. And I was very impressed by the awareness that the students already had. Even as 4th graders, they could identify and name that's being overwhelmed. They could identify already strategies that they could use if it were themselves in that situation, or somebody with them. That if they saw somebody who was having a difficult time, and they were with an adult keeping them safe, that giving them privacy and space would be a good strategy, possibly. So the kids, the social and emotional learning that's happening in and out of school is very impressive. And I was also really struck by the number of students who were nodding along, saying, "That's me. I know what that feels like. I have anxiety." We had the sensory table. my therapist helps me with this. And they were very, very open with discussing among their peers strategies and solutions that they use for addressing their own needs. And I just thought that is night and day compared to where we were just a few years ago. So it's so healthy to see kids be able to know what these big feelings are and how to and have strategies for addressing them. So I was just super impressed by that. Yeah, it's amazing. They're amazing, and they're just so capable of empathy and understanding. So anyway, PACE, great meeting last night. I think Dr. Cabral covered that really, really well. The next meeting for that committee is November 6th. As mentioned, we'll be at a state conference, but intend to participate remotely as circumstances allow. And the next meeting, I believe, will be more of a deep dive on the town counterpart. So we've spent many hours going over the school budget process and all the levers and just all things schools for the past couple of weeks. So it'll be all things town for the most part next time. So folks have curiosity about the bigger town departments like police, fire, DPW, and I think health and human services, community health services, and any others that may any other questions and issues that may come up in the next couple of weeks. Let's see. I know we have some testing coming up, both at OA. So we've got the PSATs coming up. So good luck to all the students who are taking that, and then SATs coming up in early November. October 29th, I believe OA will have its open house for 8th graders. So hopefully that will be well attended and a good opportunity for the different student groups and organizations to kind of shine and let students know that they exist and give them something to look forward to if they, when they get to OA. The Bay State Show Choir Festival is coming up, so that's the weekend of the 8th and 9th. So they have a showcase on Saturday the 9th, which is always just such an impressive performance of show choirs, not only Easton's, but from around the state and out of the state. And then finally, I don't have the comprehensive sports report because the seasons are literally ending right now for many of the teams. So there's a staggering of season end dates. And so we've got the 23rd, the 24th, there are a couple that are still going. Football plays until the first weekend of November, but and cross country, as we know, is their regular season is done. They've got Hawk championships coming up and then state championships. And then golf, they finished their season. So for the remaining teams, though, both girls and boys soccer, field hockey, and volleyball are all postseason contenders and are enjoying very strong showings in the MIAA Power Rankings that came out last Friday. So those will be updated soon, and then the final rankings will be out, and then the playoff tournament brackets will be out, and we will be you'll find me on a field or in a gym for as many events as I can make it to over the next couple of weeks, because it is like one of my favorite parts of being in Easton is going to those games and seeing the crowds and seeing the leadership and the staff who comes. And we have some members in the audience who I know I'll see you there with your kids, and you bring your families along, and it's just really an amazing way to show support for our students. So looking forward to that. It's a fun time of year. No matter how far they go into these tournaments. So.
The other way the season is all the halls are decorated.
All the senior nights
happening. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. All the students before this meeting that were laid out on the floor decorating posters for cross country. So it's very exciting.
Yeah.
Right outside this room.
Yes.
Yep. Awesome. Yeah. For those who don't have kids at the high school or haven't recently been through the high school, the school spirit here that's shown for not just sports, but other groups. Robotics does a ton of support for their students, and the musicals and those the competitive music programs. They just do along with the boosters and their coaches and the other school staff that support them. The student support is tremendous, and it's just amazing to come in and see lockers decorated and cars decorated, and in the atrium, have banners that are going across. When you walk in the door, it's really quite a sight. So
So awesome. Okay, I think that was all I had then for school committee notes. So with that, I'm sorry, yeah, Kelly did. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to make a motion to go into executive session to return to open session pursuant to MGL Chapter 38, subsection 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining for the Easton Educators Association EEA Paraprofessional Unit, and pursuant to MGL Chapter 38, 21A7, to comply with open meeting law to review minutes of prior executive sessions from August 15th and August 22nd, 2024. And in my opinion, having these discussions in open session would be detrimental to the bargaining position of the school committee. Can I get a second? Roll call vote?
DeLuca, yes.
Westman, yes.
Star, yes?
Loomis, yes.
Percio, yes.
Okay, all right, so with that, Great, thank you. All right, so welcome back, everybody. We have 3 sets of minutes to approve. So first, we'll begin with the Thursday, October 10th, 2024 minutes. Oh, I meant to let you all know that there was an updated version that was placed in our folders. I had given some feedback to Lynn on a few updates that needed to be made. So, so assuming that we all probably caught some of the same, names and whatever,
Yeah, I
those
caught
have
a
been
few
taken care
things.
of. Okay, so beyond that, any other?
There was like one word that was off in one of the sections on my comments. I'm not sure it's critical, but there was on page 5, like 6 lines down, it says knock out. It was supposed to be knock off effects. I probably didn't articulate myself, so.
Knock off, all right. Okay, so we'll have
Not
that.
a huge change.
Yeah, we'll have that edit made to the
Yep.
final version that gets posted. Any other? Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the school committee the school committee minutes from Thursday, October 10th with the noted edit. Can I get a second?
Percio, second.
Roll call vote.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
Percio, yes.
Thank you. Next up, fresh out of executive session to discuss, we have the executive session minutes from Thursday, August 15th, 2024. So I make a motion to approve with the edits that we previously discussed and to not release at this time. Can I get a
DeLuca,
second?
second.
Thank you. Roll call vote.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman,
Star, yes.
Percio, yes.
And then finally, executive session minutes from Thursday, August 22nd, 2024, which were previously discussed in executive session. And I make a motion to approve with noted edits and not release at this time. Can I get a second?
Wiseman, second.
Roll call vote.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
Percio, yes.
Great. And our next meeting is on November 14th?
14th at 6 p.m.
14th at 6 p.m. Thank you. All right, so with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Can I get a second?
Percio, second.
Roll call vote.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
Percio, yes.
All right, great. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you all.
Good night.